Hi, it is Thursday. It's 4:01. We're late today. I apologise for that. I lost internet right before we were about to go live, but it looks like it is back. Hopefully, we won't have any more problems like that, and we can talk about news because Dan Thomas is here. Hi, Dan.
Hello, how are we doing?
Not too bad, other than that sheer panic I felt when I saw my internet go down.
It really wouldn't be a weekly live show without some technical hiccup, would it?
Yeah, hopefully all our viewers were making their way to... I'm not sure if they need to refresh or what's going on, but hopefully everyone will find their way here. We're going to get started though. We're going to talk about some news, because there's a lot of it to get through as usual. Always a busy week in the world of games. And the first story we've got to get to today is PlayStation 5. It's real. It's in the hands of some Japanese YouTubers, and Sony themselves actually posted a teardown video. They haven't been allowed to say that much yet, in terms of what they were allowed to show off or even record or share photos of, but a lot of people are reporting that it's quiet. So there's an issue a lot of people had with the PlayStation 4 was the fan noise. It was extremely loud at times. Apparently the PlayStation 5 has solved that issue, presumably by being gigantic. And they're also...
I think in the
Oh, go ahead.
in the teardown video, which I did watch like a massive nerd, they focus a lot on the various damping and insulation and all these various things to quieten down the fan noises and the disk drive for the disk drive version as well. So yeah, lots of attention has gone into that.
I know you weren't a fan of the design when you first saw it. Do you have more of an appreciation for the design now you've seen the teardown? Now that you've seen why it's as huge as it is?
I'm not so offended by the size. Obviously, it is now a very beastie machine. So yeah, that needs the size of it. I'm still not 100% on the design. Specifically, I do feel there's an element of form over function with some of it. So there's really good engineering has gone into it, which I was really impressed with. But it feels like if you had just simplified it, you wouldn't have needed I don't know if you've seen like the stand has a very nice. It's nicely considered. You can unscrew the stand if you've got it in vertical mode, and there's a little slot for you to store the screw that you take out, and a little cover for the screw hole that gets exposed. It's all very well considered, but it's like if you just made it a box, you wouldn't have needed to do all of that. But no, it is. Yeah, the attention to detail is impressive.
Some potential over-engineering. People were allowed to play a couple of games. They were allowed to play Godfall and I think I got the name of this wrong. Astro's... Is it Astro's Playroom? It's Astro's something. The one that's packed in with the PlayStation 5. And in all cases, people reported that was quite good. Loading times were impressive from the SSD, which is one of the big things this generation on both sides. The SSD improving or eliminating load times in some cases. And actually, on the Astro front, some thoughts about the controller have also been shared. So this is a slight departure from the previous controller, which has been very static for the past 3 generations. Reporters have talked about the haptic feedback and the kind of built-in audio, which is stuff that they did start playing with the PlayStation 4, but apparently is much improved. And I have a quote here written down actually from Famitsu, Japanese publication. When you walk on the metal, a very slight, strong vibration is transmitted with a unique metallic sound, and you can hear a slightly slippery feeling on the glass. So that's like as the character transitions around, they're saying that the haptic feedback and the audio response you get is quite good. I mean, the controller does seem like it's a fancy controller.
Yeah, I mean, it looks cool, and that is, as you say, kind of a step change in the generations, and so that is a differentiator. You know, the just more processing power, more graphics. Those are the expected things. So it is interesting that Sony have taken a step that that's certainly one thing that Xbox haven't done. And I quite enjoyed. I mean, this kind of weren't massively used to the features of the latest DualShock in the PS4, but they were quite nice when they did use them. The little microphone or the small speaker that was in there, and I seem to remember, I think it was in The Last of Us, your battery would die and you'd have to hit the controller against the palm of your hand. Those kind of little extra details, they were nice, they were fun, kind of a little bit of extra delightful features in the game. So it'd be nice to see more experimentation with that on the new generation.
Yeah, definitely. And something else has come out of this story which I think is strange, but also interesting. So if you're not aware, in Japan, culturally, circle is a common symbol for progressing or confirming, and X, kind of like it is here to a degree, X is close or back or stop what you're doing. And there's been this difference throughout the PlayStation history where in the Japanese market and in Japanese developed games, which you'll know if you've played a few of them, the circle icon is often confirm or move forward, and the X, or the cross as Sony would insist I call it, is back. And in Europe and America and basically everywhere else we do it the other way around. X is usually confirm and circle is back. What's interesting about this PlayStation 5 hands-on is that they've now unified around the American and European way of doing it. So X, at a system level, X is confirm and circle is back.
It is interesting. I'd be curious to see the reaction to that.
Yeah, and this is at the system level, and developers still have the option, obviously, to map buttons however they want. So it'd be interesting to see if Konami or any of the other big Japanese publishers release games, whether they follow suit with that, or if they're like, nah, circles forward, and X is back.
I think that is an interesting one, and I think that whole sort of custom mapping is just becoming more and more expected and needed, because as the number of genres and the number of mechanics and the different approaches to different mechanics, it's like we've just gone so far beyond a consistent mapping for this type of game, or first-person shooters have this and this type of game has that. So maybe it's actually a non-issue, and people are now just, one of their default things is, okay, this is how I want to play, and the custom mapping is what's needed.
Nintendo fans will note that obviously on the Switch side of things, it is the button that would be in the circle's place is usually progress, and the one at the bottom is usually back in Nintendo as well, so they still do it the Japanese way, at least by default. Speaking of the PlayStation 5, VGM, who are a market research company, have released the results of a survey. I've got a bunch of stats for you, hard numbers from a survey of US players and purchasers about their next-gen console and about their thoughts. So I'll read you some of these numbers. 15% of those people surveyed said they managed to successfully pre-order a next-generation console. It's obviously fairly low. Within this group, 72% went for the disc edition of the PlayStation 5, 30% went for the Xbox Series X, 10% for the PS5 digital edition, and 8% for the Xbox Series S. I've got more stats in a second, but just to pause on that briefly, I guess it's to be expected that the enthusiasts who are pre-ordering at this early stage are probably going to be looking at the higher end models of these things, with all the features available. Definitely in the Xbox case, but it seems also on the PlayStation 5 people don't want to give up their discs if they're
that would stand to reason. Was there an indication there, sorry if I'm misinterpreting that, of the preference between the platforms, or
well, I guess this is what they ended up ordering, so you can infer preferences from that. I do have an additional stat actually. So 29% of the respondents said they attempted to pre-order a next-gen console but were not able to do so because of stock availability. And of those, 58% were trying to purchase a disc PlayStation 5, 40% Xbox Series X, 21% digital PlayStation 5, and 11% Xbox Series S. So in terms of the ones that when people couldn't get one, it was actually more of the, proportionally more on the Xbox Series X side were like couldn't manage to acquire one of the percentage that wanted them. But there's definitely a preference for the PlayStation 5 in terms of these numbers, and I think that's probably to be expected. They're kind of the market leaders at the minute, and I think everyone would say Microsoft have some work to do this generation, which they've started doing already. And will continue to do. Also interesting from this survey, 52% of the respondents who have pre-ordered a PlayStation 5 or intend to buy one by the end of 2020 said that Spider-Man Miles Morales was the exclusive game that encouraged them to do so, followed by God of War Ragnarok at 42% and Final Fantasy 16 at 32%.
That is very interesting. Obviously, kind of Microsoft dialing back their platform exclusive titles. That's obviously still a very key driver. And it's interesting because it's actually, I think, quite a spirited move to say no, we don't want to focus on exclusives. And Microsoft's whole kind of when we all play, everybody wins kind of mantra. But yeah, the exclusives still pulling in the punters for PlayStation.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting as well. But Miles Morales, I mean that's not a PlayStation 5 exclusive. You can play that on a PlayStation 4, but it's clearly still a draw. People want to see the best possible version of that. I do have some stats on the Xbox side. So of the people who bought Xbox Series X, or intend to do so at the end of 2020, 45% of them mentioned Halo Infinite as a factor, and they also cited Fable at 26% and Forza Motorsport 8 with 24%. So lower numbers across the board compared to the Sony's exclusive offering, like we've just talked about. Also have some stats on non-exclusive titles. So 45% of those who pre-ordered either console or intend to do so said Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War is the title that motivated their decision to buy a next-gen console, followed by Assassin's Creed Valhalla at 31%. So yeah, I mean they're games like Miles Morales that you could play on current-gen consoles, but clearly there's a desire to play them on the latest and greatest hardware.
I think that's a classic positioning of new products, isn't it? If you're going to be making an investment, making a purchase of a new shiny experience, and if there is a newer, shinier version available, there's always going to have some appeal and draw to that.
And lastly, from these bunch of stats, because I think this is not unexpected, kind of what we've talked about already, but interesting to see it kind of confirmed by survey data. 45% of the interviewees who are leaning towards the PlayStation 5 said it was to be able to play its exclusive games, while 42% of those interested in the Xbox Series X or S said they wanted to be able to sign up for the subscription programs such as Game Pass. So that's where the battle lines are drawn.
It's very, very interesting, and it's just nice to see a bit of activity and getting some information around it. We haven't had a new generation launch for a long time, so yeah, I'm enjoying this just from spectating from the sidelines.
I mean, yeah, it tells you everything about how thirsty people are for information like this stuff. I mean, we've still not seen the PlayStation 5 UI at all. There was an article on Eurogamer, I think it was. It was like after that teardown video, it was like PlayStation 5 has mysterious nut, and they've zoomed in and honed in on there's this little nut that's on the console. Like, what's that for? Why is that there? And that just shows you how seriously people take it.
And that is interesting because obviously we talk a lot about this idea of the extended experience and how games audiences, they just want to engage. It's not just about playing that game and then leaving it. They are, like I say, thirsty for anything and everything. So yeah, it's really interesting seeing that. That is a exemplification of that idea that people are interested in the nut on the side of the console. Give the people what they want. Tell them what the nut does.
Yeah, that's the next press conference is all about the nut. Elsewhere, outside PlayStation territory, you've frozen for me, Dan, but I'll keep going. Hopefully you can still hear me. Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, a game for the Need for Speed franchise, obviously, a little bit older now, and the sirens are outside my house just in time to be timely and on theme. It's being remastered, which I think we knew this. It was kind of rumoured for a long time. There were some ESRB ratings out there in the wild. But it's coming quite soon, November 6th on Xbox One, PlayStation 4 and PC, and November 13th on the Switch, which will be the first time it's been on the Switch at all. And it's going to support crossplay. Which is, exciting for those of you who want to play with friends and maybe have different consoles. Did you ever play Hot Pursuit?
I did not play Hot Pursuit, but I am excited to see that. I believe it's the EA Criterion crew working on that, who are our friends in the Guildford area, which we always love to see and support. So yeah, very exciting.
With Stellar Entertainment helping out on the remaster, and they also worked on Burnout Paradise Remastered. I'm going to say it. I mean, this is a controversial opinion to any Need for Speed fans. Need for Speed Hot Pursuit is the best Need for Speed game, and I know that there will be a lot of people out there who hate me for saying that, but it is. Just get used to it.
Well, I look forward to the Let's Play that we'll inevitably be doing of that.
Yeah, it's a great game. It's a lot of fun. We'll rush over this because otherwise we'll talk about it every week. But Apple versus Epic continues. And the big piece of news this week is that a trial date has been set, tentatively I guess, but it's been set for May 2021, and it's not clear whether that'll be a in-person trial or a remote trial. Who knows what the world will look like in May 2021 at this stage, but progress nonetheless. Maybe one day that roller coaster will end.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not as exciting as Xbox v PlayStation, is it? It's obviously very pertinent and will have significant ramifications, however that plays out.
Yep. Let's have a fun news story. How about this? Rambo is going to be in Mortal Kombat, announced today, but
nice.
suspected according to rumours recently, and it's voiced by Sylvester Stallone himself. So this is part of the latest combat pack, which features Rambo along with classic characters Mylena and Rain. You can buy the characters separately, or you buy the pack of characters separately, I should say, or you could buy an Ultimate Edition, which they've announced as well, which comes with all the DLC. And yeah, Rambo now joins the likes of Terminator, the Joker, and RoboCop among the third-party characters that have been shoehorned into the Mortal Kombat franchise.
Nice. I mean, that's another great example, and I think Ben was talking about this. Was it last week? Kind of these long life games and tactics for extending the life, and Mortal Kombat, and it's so celebrity drop-ins is a very good example of that. Clearly that's sending the ripples out, so yeah, that's quite cool. I'm happy to see that.
And if you're looking for more from Ben Joy, stick around, because later in the show he's joining us to talk all about games that are what you might call late bloomers, games that launch and then become successful after the fact. But we've got some more news to do first. Slightly sad one this. So Bloomberg is reporting that Activision Blizzard are closing their Versailles office in France. There was, for a time, they were considering moving half of those staff to London, but that has been impacted by COVID, and they've also cited Brexit as an issue for them. So that deal is basically off, and now 400 jobs are at risk. Obviously, some of those might get placed elsewhere in the company on an individual basis, but yeah, sad news for the Versailles office and everyone who works there. And I think it's maybe the first example I can think of. There might have been others that I'm not aware of gaming company directly citing Brexit as a cause for a major structural change. Probably not.
Yeah,
the last.
that is yeah, that is interesting as well, because kind of people talk about the obviously the benefits in the loosest possible sense that has had on the games industry. So obviously there's lots more players spending time playing games in lockdown and various things, but as we've mentioned a couple of times, kind of the implications on production capabilities and operations and all these other things clearly take their toll as well, and that is a double whammy with obviously COVID being cited, and then obviously devastating for that studio, but also the opportunity that was there for the UK as well, and potential boon to our local industry that could have been. But I'm sure a lot of these roles will hopefully go remote or open up to other parties. But yeah, that's not the kind of ideal news you want to be reading about in the industry.
Yeah, and don't worry, because I've got a fun one to end on. Super Nintendo World. Actually, is this fun? It's not that fun. It's partially fun, partially also sad. If you're not aware, Universal Studios in Osaka have been working on a Mario-themed theme park, or at least a section of Universal Studios in Osaka. It's going to become Mario World themed. It's called Super Nintendo World, and also due to COVID, it has been delayed now to spring 2021. But it does look good. They've shared some more pictures of the kind of some of its work in progress, some of its renders of things they want to do. Very colourful. The kind of Mushroom Kingdom in all its 3D glory that you've seen it in the latest games in the real world.
So you think we should start planning our team trip then?
Absolutely.
Hit all our targets and set the world on fire. We'll have a team trip to Osaka.
Yeah, I mean, I expect nothing less. If that's not If that's not mentioned at Vision Day this year at the company all hands, I quit. That brings us to the end of the news. Stick around though, because later on Ben is going to be talking about late bloomers, as I said, and now I'm going to throw to a pre-recorded segment which is all about Halo ODST and some of the changes they've been making to the Master Chief Collection recently, which I think is interesting. If you like Halo, check it out. If you don't like Halo, it's only 6 minutes long. Stick around and wait for the next bit. I will throw to that now. See you soon.
Firefight.
Hello, it's me, and I'm playing Halo 3 ODST, or more accurately, I'm playing Firefight.
Tough luck on.
Within the Halo Master Chief Collection. This is a wave-based mode. Actually, no, I should. I'm supposed to be here showing off the weapons, and I immediately grabbed a sniper. That's old habits die hard there. Yeah, it's a wave-based mode. It's increasingly difficult. It's part of ODST, which has recently been added to the Master Chief Collection on PC. And I wanted to talk about it because I think it's really fascinating what they've done with this game. Obviously, Halo 3 is a beloved multiplayer shooter. From 2007, and they're basically still working on it. Because with the release of this, and obviously the Master Chief Collection is a collection, it incorporates many games, many sets of weapons, many play styles. They've incorporated some of the weapons from this game in Halo 3 multiplayer, which means they had to rebalance the game essentially. And one of those weapons is this submachine gun.
Reinforcements.
And another one is this pistol. And fans of Halo will know that pistols are serious business in Halo. Halo 1 had a very powerful pistol. Halos since have not been as powerful, although the ODST pistol is fairly powerful. So yeah, it's a whole new pistol compared to the one you usually get in Halo 3. It's mixed into the multiplayer, so multiplayer games now have options when it comes to pistols.
Overkill.
And they also have options when it comes to submachine guns as well, because submachine guns messed up. This is on heroic difficulty, so it is slightly difficult.
Double kill.
The submachine guns as well. So submachine guns are interesting, so that's actually rebalanced the recoil, how the recoil works. You'll notice this gun, SMG, doesn't really recoil. Historically in Halo, SMG is one of the only guns that does recoil as a matter of balance, otherwise they'd be too powerful in most scenarios. So they've introduced the new SMG, introduced the new pistol, and by new I mean from ODST, which is itself quite old. But they've blended them together into one multiplayer experience, which is really interesting and worth checking out. The one other gun that they've introduced is the brute version of the plasma rifle. It's just like the regular plasma rifle, except it's more powerful, but also overheats quicker. So it's kind of got its own balance already defined. Didn't have to change much about that. Oh no! Trying to stick with this guy because I am low on health.
Reinforcements.
Could really use a med pack of some kind. And it'd be nice to show you the brute plasma rifle if I can find one, but at present doesn't look like I'm going to find one before I get absolutely destroyed. Oh, yep, I don't want to be here. That's the last place I want to be standing.
Double kill. Double kill. Double kill.
Please don't kill me. Here's the brute plasma rifle. So yeah, it's red rather than blue, and it interesting. I'm not going to play this whole game on cam with you. I don't want to force you to watch my frankly amazing Halo skills take me to, you know, the highest levels of the game. But I did just want to talk about the weapon balance briefly because I think it's unusual. That wasn't good though. That was not good at all. He's so strong. That's me dead. I'll throw it back to the studio. This is Halo ODST, Halo 3 ODST I should say. Part of the Master Chief Collection. It's on Game Pass. If you like what you're seeing, check it out. It's a lot of fun.
5 enemies remain.
And yeah, back to you in the studio. And we are back, and I'm joined now by Ben Joy. He's here to talk all about late bloomers. What's up, Ben?
Yeah, I'm good. I am good. I'm very excited about going to Osaka to
Yeah.
Super Nintendo World. I'm excited about that, as long as they haven't got the Samurai ride there. That is at Thorpe Park.
Yeah,
So
we
I'm
should
not going on
mention
that
Ben's got bad experience with theme park rides this week. He went on a ride at Thorpe Park here in the UK and felt very ill afterwards. So he'll be on Princess Peach's teacups, not on the
I will.
not on Rainbow Road, the roller coaster.
I'm getting old. I used to not faze me. The roller coasters was fine. It was just that one that wiped me out for I think it was for 2 hours, which I was not proud of. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about.
No, although I could talk about that at length. Instead, let's talk about games that are late bloomers is the term we're using for this, isn't it? So it's games that have come out. Maybe they're early access, maybe they're not, and they kind of fly under the radar a little bit. We know it's very difficult to be successful in the world of gaming. It's, you know, unless you're one of the big players, it's difficult to get attention, difficult to be discovered. But certain games, you know, for whatever reason, after a period of low activity, really start to spike and take off. And I guess that's what you're here to talk about, like examples of games that have done that.
Yes, it is. Yeah, so we've talked a few times over the past few weeks about, and Dan referenced it earlier as well, about long life games, and we've really focused on games that have kind of been a hit and they've extended their life, and people are still playing them years after they came out. But they were games that were always kind of successful from the off. And this week, I just wanted to talk about games that maybe aren't quite as successful from the off, but then as you said, have seen a surge maybe a year down the line, 2 years down the line, and all of a sudden they're the hottest thing and everyone's talking about them and playing them, and kind of what goes into that and what makes that happen. I would preface this entire conversation by saying, you know, this doesn't happen all the time. It's not something to build your business plan around. Like, if you know, there's a lot of factors that are not necessarily in your control that play into this, but there are definitely things that you can do and keep an eye out for, that you can help get on top of these factors when they happen. So I actually started thinking about this because I read in Simon Carlos's Games Discoverability newsletter, he referenced about a game called Wonder Song, which I hadn't actually heard about before, and I'll touch on this in a little bit, but there was a really good kind of a post-mortem from the developer about that. It was one of these games that had a surge late on in its life. But I also started thinking about, that got me thinking about Among Us, because that's the hot thing right now, isn't it? Everyone's playing Among Us. I mean, we've played a little bit of Among Us. I didn't really get my head around it yet, but we've played it together.
Yeah. I remember murdering you in the O2 area of one of the maps. And yeah, I mean, Among Us is obviously a great example of a game that, that was really under the radar for a long time, and then that had what you would call a streamer influence spike. Like, that was really driven by a few streamers, and then obviously a few streamers turned into even more streamers. That's very much that's a Twitch success story Among Us, more than any game I can think of in recent memory.
Yeah. So what's interesting about that is you're absolutely right. It did stem from Steam, and I was reading a really interesting article that referenced one of the developers from Among Us had kind of not done quite the post-mortem that Wandersong have done, but kind of talking about the process they went through. And what really picked it up is that they reached out to Itch.io and asked to have a takeover of their homepage, which they got. And then it just so happened that a streamer, and I forget the name, so forgive me. I should have written it down. It was essentially one streamer that picked it up and played it for 4 hours, and then it kind of boomed from there. But what is really interesting about Among Us, and it was a theme along with Wandersong as well, is that it was performing in not a westernized real market, and that's what kept it alive. So what initially happened was that apparently it was doing really well in Korea. It actually got picked up by a Korean streamer, and it wasn't doing crazy numbers, but they had a big market in Korea, and that's why they put some more content into it for the Korean market because people were interested, and that was kind of enough to keep it alive. And then when it got picked up in the Western market and more onto Twitch, and people started playing it, and then it's boomed. And they kind of have really capitalized on what is happening in the world right now. When it first came out, because it's been out for two years, I think 2018 it came out. And if you look at the Steam playing charts, it was kind of like nothing, and it's huge now. When it first came out, it was kind of marketed as like a game you play with your friends, because it is, and it was kind of put like, oh, you're in the same room and you're playing together, and the game doesn't really suit itself to that. So people kind of very quickly, I guess, were like, oh, this doesn't, it doesn't suit itself to this. Whereas now, where we're all playing remotely and playing on Discord, it's like, oh, this is actually a really good remote game to play when you can mute your mics and you don't have people screaming when they get murdered in O2 by someone they thought was their friend. And it works a lot better there, and it's the kind of game where people have wanted to come together in the current climate and play together, and this game really is in the strength of that. It really suits the current environment, and they've been able to get on the back of that and really push that, and that's definitely helped. So that's another one of the examples where you can't rely on this as a business plan, because who saw this coming? But it's being aware of the factors around you that are happening in the real world and jumping on the back of it and kind of making the best of bad situations, or just making the best of the current situation and using it to your advantage to get your game out there.
Yeah, there's a concept, isn't there, called newsjacking, and this idea of like, I think someone calls it urgent genius, I feel like is the word I've seen used on LinkedIn, and I'm outing myself as a person who actually reads LinkedIn, which is very shameful. But yeah, this idea that you can leverage newsworthy incidents and events. I mean, 2020's got a whole lot of news. I don't know if you've noticed, but we tend to have enough news in a single 2020 day that would have filled a whole year of like 2005 news. So yeah, there's a lot going on, lots of things that you can latch onto, lots of cultural situations that are maybe a little bit unusual this year. I'm curious about what other games you've got that you've thought about though. So I know Among Us is a great example. What other games have you been looking into?
So I referenced it right at the beginning to Wandersong. It's not actually a game I'm familiar about. I just kind of stumbled across it through Simon Carless, and that's kind of what got me kind of reading into this a little bit more. So Wandersong is a game that came out a couple of years ago again, and it's a puzzle game based around song. You're a bard, and you're going around collecting puzzle pieces to stop the world's demise, essentially. And again, they released and didn't get the reception that they wanted. It didn't really take off, and in the post-mortem that I was reading by the developer, it's kind of it's a real crushing feeling, and didn't really know why it wasn't working. But what's interesting in the post-mortem is that kind of as you go through it and read it, you can see him coming to like the realizations of like, oh, actually that had a factor. So one of the things he mentions about the reviews, so it got very good reviews off the bat, just not many. And then when it did start taking off again, like a lot of the reviews were, oh, this game isn't what I expected, but I love it. And it kind of really comes back down to, and it's similar to the Among Us, is kind of the positioning of a game. Like how you position your game has a big bearing on the uptake it will get. And clearly, like he realized, he positioned it in a way that wasn't maybe necessarily all that appealing to people. But then when people did pick it up, they loved it, and it kind of had a snowball effect. As when people, the more people that play it, the more people hear about it, and then the more people pick it up. And if it's one of those games which is a hidden gem, which it seems like this one is, it kind of needs that word of mouth to spread. It's quite a niche concept, so it didn't get the mainstream appeal and word out that some other games had. But yeah, once it picked up, it got going. And it's interesting you said about newsjacking. In this post-mortem, one of the things that he mentions is that a few months down the line, he noticed that on Steam he still had like the under review tag on his game, even though it was out and being sold. And he thought it was potentially because he'd had a lot of good reviews early doors, which a lot of games don't necessarily get. So he just jokingly on the game's Twitter account started joking about Steam thinking it was a bot and it wasn't real, but it is very much a real game. And it was around the time that Epic Game Store was just becoming a thing, and people were talking about like, oh, this is the next best thing. Steam doesn't treat indie developers right, and kind of it gave journalists a reason to talk about it off the back of what he was saying. Mm-hmm. And for disclosure, he wasn't bashing Steam. He was just making a light-hearted comment, and he did actually tweet and like, just to be clear, I'm not saying Steam is bad. I'm just making a joke. But that got it in the news, and it was in the news, so then more people played it, and then reviews spiked, and good reviews lead to more people seeing it and more people discovering it.
Yeah. So are there any games that you played before they were cool?
Any games that I played before they were cool?
I don't think you're a gaming hipster. I think you only play things long
I'm
after
not.
they're cool. I think you play things when they're like they've ceased to be cool.
Yeah, I don't set the trend. I'm still playing Nintendo 64 games, so I'm
They're eternally cool. There's
that is
something very
eternally
cool about Nintendo games.
So that's what I was playing before it was cool. I was playing Nintendo 64 before it was back. I guess it had been cool, then I was playing it, and now it's cool again. But I was all the way through.
What about something like Minecraft? When did you start playing? When did you first play Minecraft? Were you pre or post Notch?
I haven't played a lot of Minecraft, but that is a good example of a game that was a slow starter and took off, and a lot of things factored that. They put a lot of content into the game. There was the educational spin on it. There was the free-to-play version. Obviously, Mojang being bought out by Microsoft made a big impact, because then it got it on more platforms, which is a big thing, which helps getting games on more platforms. It's one of the things that the guy from WonderSong mentioned as well, like getting onto Xbox and being on Game Pass had a big bearing on it, and being in Humble Bundle again had, obviously that's not a platform, but that was a way of getting the game out to more people in a So in terms of having played Minecraft, that's not really something I've ever really done, but it is a very good example of a game that started off slow and is now huge. Another one which people might not necessarily consider is Fortnite, like one of the biggest games in the world right now. Like when that released in 2017, like that was quite slow off the mark, because people were like, oh, it's a PUBG rip-off, like it's just trying to be PUBG, and
early on,
then they added more content.
Yeah, early on they even pivoted, didn't they? Because early on, Battle Royale was just one small slice of what Fortnite was supposed to be, and it's interesting, fascinating, really, the way that they were able to divert resources, because they basically realised, okay, people playing Battle Royale, the graph is going like this, and people playing all our other modes, deathmatch, and all the standard ones we put in, and the other stuff we've built, no one cares, so let's just go all in on the Battle Royale, and that's obviously paid off for them in a major way. And now they're kind of coming back around to like, what if we were more than a Battle Royale? But they really figured out how to, like you say, leverage that snowball effect, because once it started, it just kept growing, and who knows if it'll ever stop. One day it will. Either Apple will kill them or another game will. One of those two things.
Yeah, one thing that I found really interesting through reading a bit more about this is obviously everyone playing well, not everyone, but a lot of people are playing Among Us now, and it is the hottest thing, and it's kind of, people have branded it as an overnight success, which clearly it's not because it came out 2 years ago. But what I didn't realize, and is maybe pertinent to it, is that it actually had like over 1 million downloads on mobile last year. Like over 1 million people last year had downloaded it on mobile, and I saw a really funny tweet around this, and someone basically said, no one cares about a game if it's got 1 million mobile downloads until people play it on Steam, which is essentially what has happened here with Among Us. It's got onto the Steam, it's taken off on the Steam platform, and all of a sudden that's made a huge difference. And there are things that you can do on Steam that can help you as well. So what Among Us did was they got on the daily deals. So I don't know whether that's, I think you're familiar with them, Adam. You probably are because you're a gamer, so you will have seen them. So Steam have these daily deals, and you can reach out to Steam and ask for them. Or if Steam sees that you're doing quite well, they'll come to you and be like, "Do you want to be on the daily deal?" And that's what happened to Among Us. They got asked if they wanted to go on a daily deal, and I think they went on a 50% discount. So it wasn't the biggest discount they'd had. But what that does is obviously there is always some trepidation, I guess, from developers to put a discount on a game because obviously they've put a lot of effort into it. So they want to get the full value in that they think it's worth, and they don't want to maybe cheapen the game by discounting it. But what discounting can do is it can drive sales because people will pick it up because it's cheaper. But what it also does is it can drive wish lists, which was a huge thing for Among Us. They picked up a lot of wish lists from their daily deal. And then from more people playing it, from having picked it up, gained the traction, and then when they were more comfortable at dropping to an even lower price at one point, I think maybe in the summer sale, they dropped to 75%, and then all of a sudden all those wish lists come in. So again, it's not at the full price. That's a lot of people getting the game in one go because they've been sat waiting from the initial discount. So discounting is definitely a mechanism that is useful to use. Obviously, the daily deal is a daily deal. It's on the day and it's gone. But if you are running a discount, then push that in your marketing. It doesn't necessarily have to convert to the sale right there and then. If it does, great. But you shouldn't underestimate the power that building your wish list has.
Yeah, people might add something, or people might be interested but not prepared to commit, and then it's the start of a journey which eventually leads them to commit.
Exactly.
I'm interested in your thoughts. I know we've got to wrap up soon, but I'm interested in your thoughts about Game Pass, because that kind of changes the paradigm for a lot of games, and we've seen some developers. I think Mike from No More Robots was out there talking about the numbers that Descenders did for them on Game Pass being incredibly healthy, like far beyond what they could have expected, because of the way that Game Pass works. And I guess that's, for some games, maybe that's an avenue. I know Game Pass isn't something you can't just stroll up to Microsoft HQ and chuck the game over the fence and put it on there. There's more of a gated community feel to it right now. You have to actually do a deal with someone at Microsoft, probably Phil Spencer in person, I imagine, with a big briefcase full of money. But getting on a service like that, or one of the competing services that are kind of rising to meet Game Pass, is maybe a good way to take a game that didn't perform as well. But the bar to entries was too high for most players. But when it's on Game Pass or a similar service, suddenly that bar is lowered massively, and that translates into success.
Yeah, I think you've absolutely hit the nail on the head there with the barrier to entry to play. I think that is the power of Game Pass. And I guess Game Pass can go two ways depending on the success of your game. If your game is really successful and Microsoft want it on Game Pass because it's going to be more alluring for people to sign up to Game Pass, they're going to come to you and they're going to have a good deal for you because it's in their interest to get you on there. If your game isn't performing quite as well, and your deal might not be as good, but it might secure more runway for you to be able to keep adding to the game or develop your next game, because obviously if you've done a deal with Microsoft, there's a deal in place. Obviously there'll be different ins and outs for every deal. I'm sure it's not necessarily a set contract you're on Game Pass and will everyone gets this amount of money. So, but it's some kind of security, and for a game that isn't maybe performing as well as it would have liked. For example, WonderSong Game Pass was one of the things that he said was a big help to them, is that it gets people to play the game. You've paid your whatever it costs a month on Game Pass. It seems like with all the different deals they have running, it changes. I'm not actually sure what the real number is, and maybe $10.99 at full price for Ultimate. So you paid, let's say you paid £11 a month to play. You've got all these games. You stumble across one that you would not have necessarily bought before, but it's there and you've already kind of paid for it and it feels free. You might give it a go, and that's how you find the hidden gems. So I think Game Pass is incredibly important in those instances, and yeah, it definitely shouldn't be seen as a negative. I think, yeah, if it looks like it's going to work for you and you can get your game on Game Pass, then yeah, do it.
Yeah.
Do it. So.
If Microsoft comes knocking, just say yes.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts before we wrap up here? You can
I
say
don't think so. I think I've covered. I think I've covered everything that I wanted to cover.
Okay. You know what happened?
I'm sure I'll think of something immediately after we go off air. But
yeah, what I'm hoping for this video is this video has 0 views for about a year, and then in a year's time, it just shoots up, and we can't explain why.
Yep.
Well, that wraps us up then for this show today. Thanks for joining us. If you've been watching at home for the news, or for Halo, or for this, we're live every Thursday at 4 PM, internet permitting. So make sure you subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, then make sure you subscribe there. Oh yeah, which way around is it? Twitch is follow, YouTube subscribe. There
That's
you go.
the one.
Someone's followed us right now. Thank you, Dr. Dre Damon. And we'll see you again next week. Thanks for tuning in. See ya.